This is breaking news in the world of international finance. After years of speculation, discussions, and whispers behind the scenes, the revaluation of the Vietnamese Dong is now official. The global currency markets are already reacting as Vietnam's central authorities have made a formal announcement confirming a historic shift in the valuation of their national currency. What does this mean for investors, for the Vietnamese economy, and for global trade? And most importantly, what is the official timeline moving forward? In the next few minutes, we will walk you through everything we currently know, what's being reported, and what this could mean for you. The Vietnamese government, through the State Bank of Vietnam, has confirmed that a phased revaluation of the dong is now underway. This isn't just a rumor. It has been verified in statements released late last night, with clear indications that the process is already in motion. The revaluation aims to bring the dong closer to its real market value, aligning it more accurately with Vietnam's current economic strength and rising trade performance. For years, the Vietnamese dong has been criticized for being severely undervalued, even as the country has emerged as a key player in the Southeast Asian economy. With a booming export sector, massive foreign direct investment, and a rapidly growing tech and manufacturing base, Vietnam has outgrown the currency framework that once worked in its favor. The revaluation announcement comes at a time when regional currency policies are undergoing major shifts. Vietnam's move follows similar economic recalibrations by other emerging markets, but few have approached this level of significance. According to early reports, the revaluation will be implemented in 3 phases. The first phase begins immediately, with adjustments already being reflected in central exchange rates. Banks and financial institutions have been instructed to update their systems, and trading desks worldwide are recalibrating positions to reflect the new value. Foreign exchange markets are moving quickly, and investors are being urged to closely monitor volatility in the short term. The second phase, which is expected to roll out over the next 60 days, will include the gradual lifting of foreign exchange restrictions and the introduction of new policies designed to increase transparency and investor confidence. Currency traders have been closely watching this timeline, and initial estimates suggest a moderate upward shift in the dong's value, somewhere between 5 to 10% in the early stages. However, analysts caution that this is only the beginning. The full picture of how far the revaluation will go remains tightly guarded by Vietnamese officials. Phase 3 is where things get particularly interesting. Slated to begin within 120 days, this final step involves a complete overhaul of the current foreign exchange management system. Sources close to the government suggest that the new system will include a partially free-floating exchange mechanism anchored by a basket of currencies rather than being pegged closely to the US dollar. This move is seen as a major milestone in Vietnam's broader efforts to modernize its economy and fully integrate into the global financial system. Officials believe this new mechanism will allow the dong to find its true market value, reduce inflationary pressures, and bolster investor trust both domestically and abroad. This decision has not been made lightly. Vietnam's monetary authorities have been working behind closed doors for months, collaborating with international consultants and policy experts to ensure that this transition occurs smoothly. The timing of the announcement appears to have been strategically chosen, after months of record trade surpluses and ahead of major debt repayment deadlines in Q4. The Vietnamese government has repeatedly stressed its commitment to economic stability, and officials are making it clear that the revaluation is a sign of strength, not desperation. International reactions have been swift. Regional banks are already adjusting their interest rate forecasts. Several financial institutions have issued special advisories to clients holding Vietnamese assets. In the United States and Europe, large investment firms with exposure to Asian markets are analyzing portfolio implications, while hedge funds are actively recalibrating risk exposure. Central banks in neighboring countries are also watching closely, particularly in Thailand and Indonesia, where economic ties with Vietnam are strong. Currency strategists around the globe agree on one point. This is one of the most significant developments in Southeast Asian finance in over a decade. The Vietnamese population is also responding to the news with a mix of optimism and uncertainty. While official channels are emphasizing the benefits of a stronger dong, such as increased purchasing power, lower inflation, and greater international credibility, there are concerns about the short-term impact on exporters and remittances. Businesses that have benefited from the dong's historically low value are now facing a shift in competitive dynamics. The government has already hinted at support mechanisms for affected sectors, including targeted tax incentives and financial buffer packages. What we're seeing now is the beginning of a controlled, strategic transformation. Make no mistake, this is not an overnight currency reset. It is a structured, phased revaluation that will unfold gradually over the coming months. The goal is to minimize shock to the system while aligning the currency with economic fundamentals. Vietnam's long-term plan appears to center on building a resilient, investor-friendly monetary framework that reflects its growing influence on the global stage. Behind the scenes, financial institutions have been preparing for this moment for weeks. There have been quiet movements in interbank lending markets, increased demand for dong-denominated assets, and subtle shifts in cross-border settlement behavior. These signs, while subtle at first, now make perfect sense in hindsight. Insiders who are able to interpret these market signals are already positioning themselves for what could be a lucrative period of growth and capital appreciation. Another factor worth considering is Vietnam's rising geopolitical importance. As global manufacturing pivots away from China, Vietnam is increasingly seen as a stable, productive alternative. Major multinational corporations have already begun relocating operations, bringing in billions in foreign investment. This influx of capital has put upward pressure on the dong for some time. With the revaluation now official, it formalizes what many experts have been saying for months. The Vietnamese economy is ready to take the next step. In the coming days, we can expect more details to emerge. Vietnamese officials have promised transparency throughout the process and have already scheduled a series of briefings and technical updates. For international investors, this is a pivotal moment. Those with long-term holdings in Vietnamese real estate, manufacturing, or banking now stand to benefit as the dong gains strength and purchasing power increases. At the same time, currency volatility could create both risks and opportunities, depending on how the revaluation unfolds across different asset classes. For the Vietnamese people, this is more than a financial policy, it's a point of national pride. A stronger, more credible dong signals a country stepping into its own power. It reflects years of economic growth, hard-fought reforms, and strategic investment in infrastructure and education. The government has repeatedly framed this move as a turning point, one that aligns with its vision of Vietnam as a fully integrated player in the international economy. It's important to stress, however, that this timeline, though now officially underway, is still subject to adjustments. Global financial systems are inherently complex, and unforeseen macroeconomic developments could influence the speed or scope of the revaluation. Authorities have left room for flexibility, stating that the process will remain data-driven and responsive to both domestic conditions and international trends. This ensures that the revaluation remains on track without jeopardizing stability. In conclusion, the official revaluation of the Vietnamese dong marks a monumental shift in international currency markets. With a clear timeline, strategic intent, and growing global attention, Vietnam has now entered a new era of monetary policy. The next few months will be critical as each phase of the revaluation unfolds. Stakeholders across the spectrum, from everyday citizens to institutional investors, will be watching closely. For now, the message is clear. The Vietnamese dong is no longer the undervalued currency it once was. It is rising, recalibrating, and redefining its place in the world economy. The countdown has already begun, and the world is watching. Closing music fades in. Urgency remains as the segment ends. Stay tuned for real-time updates as this story develops.